Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty to talk about a little later in the show. Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, will join us. We'll talk Cavs. Getting ready for a huge game coming up Thursday against the Toronto Raptors. Those two fighting for that sixth spot to avoid the play-in series to get into the playoffs. We're going to begin, though, by talking Browns. Plenty of going on. So the Browns trade with the Texans for Deshaun Watson becomes official, and it is tweaked a little bit. The Browns will be actually giving up their fourth-round selection this year, the one they got from Detroit, and they will be getting a sixth-round pick, not a fifth-round pick. So it's 3 firsts, a third, and 2 fourths. This year they're giving up, it's actually next year's fourth, I'm sorry, it's the one they're getting from Detroit. So it's next year the fourth-round pick from Detroit in addition to the first-round pick. 2022, it's this year. So it's the first and fourth this year, first and third next year, first and fourth in 2024. They add in the fourth-round pick this year. Let's take a look at the top 10 offseason transactions. This is according to CBS Sports. First was Tom Brady unretires. Second is that the Browns get Deshaun Watson, so Deshaun Watson chooses the Browns. And the 9th overall pick is that Amari Cooper is traded to the Browns. So without question, Browns needed to upgrade the passing game. They have 2 of the top 10 offseason transactions, according to CBSSports.com. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, YouTube personality. And Quincy, what about it? Does this significantly upgrade the Browns' passing game like it needed to be?
Yeah, it's a pretty huge upgrade, right? When you're talking about Amari Cooper, and now you're talking about Deshaun Watson, who, is going to be probably a top 10 player at his position and has the potential to be a top 5 player at his position, right? Like, this is basically you're trading for somebody who's, I don't know if there's a term for it, but they're middle floor, right? Their most likely scenario is like he's going to have like a Russell Wilson type year. And if he is protected and plays at his highest level that we've seen him at, I mean, this is a guy who can win the MVP. So this is a huge upgrade here. Even in Baker's best year, right? We weren't ever talking about Baker Mayfield as like an actual MVP candidate that can actually win it. This is a difference, right? This is a huge difference in it. You have now somebody who can fight with Lamar Jackson. Now you don't feel like you have to have things to go right to beat the Ravens or to beat the Bengals, right, when it comes to Joe Burrow and the guys who have those quarterbacks at that level. And you're sitting at a good position when it comes to the AFC, right, because you don't want to be guessing at the quarterback position when the whole conference is a complete gauntlet of who's at quarterback. Like, I don't know how they're going to determine who's going to make the Pro Bowl in the AFC at the quarterback position, because you have like 8 or 9 guys who've already made the Pro Bowl there, and then you go to the NFC, and Kirk Cousins, he's going to make the Pro Bowl this year in the NFC. So it's a wild difference between the two conferences.
Yeah, without question. And the one thing is there's a level of consistency, and it is consistently really good quarterback play. There just wasn't the consistency with Baker Mayfield that you need from that position. There were wild swings, and I think you're going to get more consistency, and the upper edge of it's going to be higher than it has been.
Yeah, and the thing with Baker Mayfield, and probably why it's hard to trade Baker Mayfield, is something that I pointed out during the season and during the offseason this year, which is when it comes to Baker Mayfield, he can play well. But that's kind of part of the problem, right? Because what has happened with him and the Browns, right? 2018, he plays well. We get excited. We built the whole thing around him in 2019, right? We're going to bring in Odell. We're gonna trade all these assets, and we're gonna build this around you as the guy. And then he has a bad 2019, and then 2020 he has a really good 2020. We do the same thing, go all in, push the chips in on Baker Mayfield, and then he comes out and has a pretty bad year. And that's the issue, right? It's not just that he's inconsistent; it's that when a quarterback's inconsistent like that and you want to build around him, you have no idea which guy you're getting. So you might end up wasting a bunch of money on a year for a quarterback who might end up playing, like Ryan Fitzpatrick one year, and then another year he ends up looking like Drew Brees. Like, it's just one of those things where you can't gamble on that if you're an NFL front office, because going all in and having a quarterback play badly, that's a surefire recipe to get somebody fired. And the truth of the matter is, Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield are prototypical, they gonna get somebody fired quarterbacks in the NFL. And when you're a GM and you know that that's the case with those two, it's a pretty hard thing to trade for, right?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Deshaun Watson trade. We got a lot of them.
This is Jerome Garland in Mississippi about the Deshaun Watson trade. I am now a Cleveland Brown fan. The reason is because Deshaun Watson, from what I've seen since I've watched him at Clemson, was an outstanding football player and a fine young man. It's interesting that the allegations in Texas did not come out against him until he told them he wanted to be traded. Then all of a sudden we have somebody that's connected with the team go find these women, and these allegations come forward. I'm not saying what they're saying is not true. I'm saying it's interesting the way it happened with the Texans. Thank you. Go Browns.
All right, and as always, we appreciate all the voicemails. And again, the 22 allegations are a concern without question, and they need to be addressed. It's important to note they are taking depositions, so they're trying to get to the bottom of that. The other thing that's really interesting, Quincy, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, the same attorney is representing all 22 of those claims, which, and again, not passing judgment one way or another. Let's see what comes out of it. There are some things that are very strange about it, though.
Yeah, when you look at that whole situation again, it's one that it's hard to come to a super definitive conclusion on. People are ultimately going to have their idea of what they felt like happened. I think this might be a situation where Deshaun Watson's people feel like one thing might have happened with that whole situation, and the people who are coming out against them feel like something else happened, and they might both be right in that situation. They might both have their truths in that, but it's one of those situations from the outside looking in. I don't know what to make of it, because this whole thing has gotten so messy over the last year, and I don't really see it getting cleared up any further than what it is right now.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. So we're going to move on and talk about football. And, the thing about the contract the Browns gave Deshaun Watson, and they made a statement with that. Take a listen to Adam Schefter. This is from today about the contract and the way it's being viewed around the NFL.
Your Browns team made a move on a quarterback that, in my mind, pulled the biggest power play of all.
Yep.
Deshaun Watson, I think, as one NFL executive told me, broke the NFL, and that in 5 to 10 years, every NFL contract will wind up being guaranteed like the NBA. And if you remember, the NBA CBA doesn't call for contracts to be guaranteed. It's just the way that it evolved. And now, with Deshaun Watson going full guarantee on $230 million, there's a feeling across the league that that one contract is going to be the trigger point to other contracts all being guaranteed, to every elite quarterback demanding and getting a no-trade clause like Deshaun Watson had, and to the power of the quarterbacks that you're referring to growing even more in future years.
Yeah, I don't even consider this a question mark. I consider what you just said a fact. I just don't see any chance that it doesn't go in that direction. Now, listen, we've been getting a huge increase in the percentage of contracts guaranteed over the last few years, primarily by players doing shorter deals. Mm-hmm. This is the first time we've actually seen somebody accomplish this and do a lengthy deal.
It's an interesting concept, Quincy, but you know what? You got to do what you got to do to get a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, this is one of them things where I think people forget, right? A lot of the owners in the NFL now, they're more of the tech variety, right? They've come from these analytical backgrounds. They buy these NFL teams kind of in part as a business venture more than just a flex. Jimmy Haslam, on the other hand, he is not a tech billionaire, right? He's a dude who came from oil from the South. And he is primarily known, but before he was the owner of the Cleveland Browns, as the booster of the University of Tennessee. And when you have the owner that is the booster, he don't got a problem whipping out money and making it happen that way. And that's what Jimmy Haslam did, right? All these owners were looking at this, trying to make business sense of it, and not sure if they wanted to do it. If there's one dude in the NFL, right? I mean, like him, it used to be Mark Davis, or Al Davis used to be like this, and probably Jerry Jones, right? If there is somebody in the NFL that is willing to just say, all right, I'll just give you the money, I ain't worried about that, it's going to be Jimmy Haslam, right? Because that's what Jimmy Haslam's background is ultimately. He is a booster. I think people forget that when we talk about what this Deshaun Watson trip was, because after a while, this just became a recruiting trip, right? And, you know, I'm not saying that he dropped some bags at Tennessee to get some recruits, but we all know that Jimmy Haslam's a booster. This is not something that he was not unused to, right? He was like, okay, if this is what this is going to be, I know what to do. I'll give him it all. I wouldn't be surprised if he added like $10 million on top of it just to say what's up with it, just in case somebody was going to try to match it. So this is where, look, Jimmy Haslam is taking a lot of flack, and rightfully so, because he has not made some great decisions throughout his time as the owner of the Cleveland Browns. But one thing about Jimmy, if this thing comes down to money, Jimmy Haslam is not the Dolans. He is not going to be hesitant to throw out the checkbook. Jimmy Haslam, once he find out it's about money, he's like, this is my time to shine. I got it.
He got
that
it.
$230 million, a lot of that got to go into escrow like yesterday. Not everybody got money like that in the NFL. A lot of them have assets. Not a lot of them got cash like that. Jimmy Haslam got cash. Just don't forget, Jimmy Haslam, an oil man from Tennessee who's a booster for the Volunteers. He got cash. You know, that's just how that rolls.
All right, let's check in. Pat McAfee, always an interesting perspective. Let's check in with him on his reaction to the Deshaun Watson trade and contract.
A 5-year, $230 million contract, fully guaranteed.
Whoa.
Fully guaranteed. My first response, 7 L's, 6 Y's. Holy shit. That is massive. Could have never expected this. Obviously, Cleveland Browns were out of the running. And I read through Peter King's article this morning, and it kind of broke down how and why and who went where. And it might have been Albert Breer. I'm not 100% sure. I read both of those this morning. But basically, it being so fucking cold was...
Yeah.
Deshaun's like, I'm not going. Yep. Played high school in Carolina, or college in Carolina, high school in Georgia, pro in Texas. Cleveland was cold. I ain't doing it. Okay, so then Charlotte was knocked off, and it was just Falcons and Saints. And then for whatever reason, whether it was money or it was final thoughts about the teams that he was going to be attending and joining, they called back the Cleveland Browns, because the Cleveland Browns said at the end, whenever they were told that they were no longer interested, like, please let us know if there's any change of heart. There was a change of heart. Then a contract was negotiated. Then a trade took place, and whammy, the world just blows up at Friday like 4:15 or something like that. Biggest contract in the history of the NFL. Most guaranteed money in the history of the NFL.
And again, Quincy, we talked about it. That's kind of what it took to get it done. That's how it was going to get done. So the Browns decided to do that to get it done.
Oh yeah, they did. Right guy to own the team. Again, this what in this specific situation, the Jimmy Haslam will drop the money to do whatever it takes to get the player that he feels like is going to help them win, right? And this is probably one of them situations where one of the teams probably caught themselves being a little bit too smart for their own good, trying to haggle some money after going through the gauntlet of this whole trade situation with Watson. And then the agent let them know, hey, man, this is really coming down to money. And once the Browns got that call, they just sent that text straight to Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy knew what to do with it, right? And that's what happened. He said, "Okay, I'll give you the money. I don't care. I paid more money." He's still paying Hugh Jackson, right? Like, he really don't care what he has to spend to make it happen, because this is a dude who's used to it, right? Again, he's a booster. He does not give money to football teams hoping that they're gonna do exactly what they say. Like, he just gives money and says, "Hey, man, get it, make it happen," right? However it happens, make it happen. And this turned into college football, right? This was just a booster move. And Arthur Blank was not going to be as quick on the trigger as Jimmy Haslam was, because, again, Jimmy Haslam, he knew what this was pretty early in this whole situation, which was, this is a recruiting trip,
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also take a look at some other of the moves the Browns making and how they're shaping that roster. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Time to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Deshaun Watson trade in the Browns front office.
Jimmy Haslam is the best owner in football. Andrew Berry is the best owner in football. The best GM in football. And we have Deshaun Watson, baby. Go Browns.
All right, Quincy Carrier, it's important to know, Browns won't come out and say it, but what this move says is, we have a window to win a Super Bowl. We needed a quarterback. We're going after it. They won't come out and tell you that. That's what their actions say.
No, they got Myles Garrett under contract in his prime right now. They're not trying to waste that. They have 2 running backs under long-term deals right now. You really can't waste that, right? The thing about this whole situation was when people were like, "Hey, let's just wait it out with Baker Mayfield." The problem with that is that the running backs tend to fall off a cliff before they even turn 27, right? So we don't know how long Nick Chubb's going to be as good as he is. We don't know how long Kareem Hunt is going to be as good as he is. Then those two are a huge part of the Browns' attack offensively, right? And then when you flip it, they have a lot of these guys on defense locked up, right? Myles Garrett, the key of them. And it would be a crying shame if you spent Myles Garrett's prime the same way you spent Joe Thomas's prime, which is by doing a whole lot of nothing, right? Myles Garrett is going to be one of the top 5 defensive players for the next 5 to 6 years, guaranteed, basically, if he stays healthy, and probably even longer than that. But you want to make sure that during that time, you had a guy like Myles Garrett under contract, that you had a lot of these young players under contract, that you had somebody who you felt like could be a positive at the quarterback position and help you reach your goals. And now that's what they have, right? With Baker Mayfield, we didn't know what we were going to get out of him. With Deshaun Watson, they feel more confident that, hey, when he's on the field, not only is he going to be a positive, he's going to be somebody who could change games for us at the end of them if we get down. Now, all of a sudden, for the Cleveland Browns, if Deshaun Watson's out there, right, we go down 14. We ain't that worried about getting back because we know we can get the stops on defense. And now we have confidence that if the offense gets going, we'll be able to score 14 points. It didn't always used to feel like that, right? When Baker used to go down 14, it used to be like, oh, man, here we go. It's going to pile on, and then we're going to have this whole thing happen and Baker's going to throw like another interception and it's going to be this thing. But now you feel much better about your ability to come back. You feel much better about your ability to finish football games. You feel much better about your ability to win on a day-to-day basis just because you have a more consistent threat at quarterback. And let's be real here. Teams have the game plan now for the quarterback. They did not have to do that before, right? They were going to stack the box and let Baker beat them. There's not many teams that are going to be bold enough to say, all right, we're going to let Deshaun Watson beat us, because that has not been a strategy that has worked in the NFL in the past, right? So if So how are teams going to defend you? Are they going to stack the box anymore? Is that going to open things up for Nick Chubb now that you have to really worry about both the passing and the offensive side of the Cleveland Browns? Like, this just gives them options, and it makes them a very hard team to cover defensively. And we already know that the Browns defense is one of the best ones in the NFL. I think not a lot of people understand how good that defense was towards the tail end of 2021, but it's going to be one of the better defenses in the NFL if they get a couple of things right on the defensive line side, and that's not going to be hard to do in this year's draft. They're probably going to be one of the best defenses again, and when you add that on top of a pretty good offense, I mean, you can see where this is going.
Yeah, and we're going to check back in with Pat McAfee. Just here's what he feels. The Browns made a big statement in his mind.
The Cleveland Browns make a big statement. Hey, we just seen the Bengals go to the goddamn Super Bowl. Our team has a great roster, but we are one quarterback away. We fucking told our quarterback we're one quarterback away. Yeah. We're going to go look for a quarterback that can get us to the Super Bowl. You hang tight. That quarterback said, well, I want to be traded. You fucking hang tight. Yeah. Okay, we are dealing with a $230 million contract for Deshaun Watson to become our quarterback. I think people are obviously infuriated by the fact that he's getting the largest guaranteed contract of all time, with all the civil allegations that are still looming and hanging out there, and the way the contract was set up with $1 million base salary next season. So no matter what he's suspended, they're expecting it only to be length of a season at most. Maybe it'll be 6 games, maybe 4 games, maybe 12. Nobody knows.
And again, it is a friendly contract with everything that's being considered. The suspensions and that's why so the Browns did everything to accommodate and make it attractive to Deshaun Watson without question.
Yeah, man. If I'm the Bengals, I'm starting to wonder, like, is the Bengals making the Super Bowl basically when the Cavs came back from that 3-1 lead, and then the whole league was like, okay, we need to do something about this, right? And then all of a sudden Kevin Durant ends up on the Warriors, right? Because that's what it feels like if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. You went to the Super Bowl, you feel like you should have the red carpet to be the leader of the AFC North, and every team in the AFC North was like, the Bengals went to the Super Bowl? Okay, we're going to turn this thing up, right? I mean, the Steelers are even making moves, despite the fact that they don't really have a franchise quarterback right now. But we know that Baltimore, once they get healthy again, because they were just injured last year, they still almost won the division when Lamar was there. So they're going to turn things up. And in Cleveland, they didn't want to get left out of this race either. So they really made that push for Deshaun Watson, somebody who could put him on par with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. So, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm wondering, like, did I hurt myself more? Did I help myself here? Because it seems like that the Bengals and them being viewed up until this year as the Bengals, right? And them making the Super Bowl kind of shook everybody up to the point to where they're like, okay, we need to step our game up if the Bengals made the Super Bowl. And boy, did everybody step their game up in the AFC.
Yeah. The other thing is Browns signed another backup quarterback, the number 2 guy who is figures to play some as they signed Jacoby Brissett. Take a look at this from Jack Duffin. Converted 20 of 21 designed runs on 3rd and 4th and 1 in his career. You can see Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry and the analytics folks going to work with that. It keeps Watson out of situations where he's going to have to get hit. The other thing is, when you have Jacoby Brissett and you have Deshaun Watson, similar style quarterbacks, that's huge. You don't have to change things. Deshaun Watson's likely to get 4, 6, 8 game suspension after all the legal stuff is done. So you're going to need Jacoby Brissett to play.
Yeah, and I thought that would be the easiest sell that this front office would have, right? It was just selling the backup job for the Cleveland Browns, because essentially what you're selling to somebody is, hey, we have a Super Bowl ready roster that we're trying to win the Super Bowl with, right? This ain't Atlanta where we don't know what they're doing with their roster. I ain't gonna win no Super Bowl this year. This is a roster that we're trying to win the Super Bowl with, and we might need a dude to play about 6 to 8 games, maybe 4 to 6 games. We don't know, but we might need you to play a quarter of the season at most, right? And if you play well in that quarter of the season, right? If you're Jacoby Brissett, and let's say you go out there for 4 games and you go 3-1 in those 4 games, your value is going to skyrocket, and you didn't even have to play a whole season, right? With Marcus Mariota, when he went to Atlanta, he's going to have to play well for the next year for his value to jump up to what Jameis got. If he would have came to Cleveland and played well for 3 games or maybe 4 games here, his value would have jumped tremendously, and it would have. And this is a situation, quiet as kept, where it's going to be real easy for a quarterback. Well, I don't want to say real easy, relatively easy for a quarterback to look good in this system, right? Because they have a lot there. This is a motivated team. This is a team that knows if Watson gets suspended, all right, we gotta push through that, but we know what we can get if we just get out of this stretch through 500, right? So this is going to be a motivated bunch, a very talented bunch, and the longevity of how long you have to play before you can actually get paid is not that much, right? We're talking about like a potential Matt Flynn situation where you might be able to have like one good game on national TV. All of a sudden, you're the hottest name in free agency next year after everybody strikes out on Bryce Young, right? Like that's what that's going to be. And for Jacoby Brissett, I think he's an excellent guy for that role. He has the good arm strength there. He reminds me a lot of like what we hoped Cardale Jones would become in the NFL, right? He's a guy who could run, but he don't have much long speed. Very big guy, strong arm. He actually has pretty decent pocket maneuverability, and there are some games where he's put up some pretty impressive tape. I mean, you could look at last year and watch the game against the Raiders where he forced that game to go to overtime, being down, 10 points within the last 3 minutes, right? So he has had some impressive tape out there. I think he's going to do well with the Cleveland Browns, especially with the offensive line that's going to give him time to throw, and a running back room that's going to be able to support him fully. So I look forward to seeing Jacoby Brissett if he has to be out there for the Cleveland Browns, because I think this is not just an upgrade at the backup position. I think he is a pretty solid quarterback to be a backup. And I think they got tremendous value there with him only at $3.5 million for 1 year. That's tremendous value.
It might be 4, something like that, but yeah, they got a deal on him. Quincy Carrier and I got to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll continue to talk Browns here on Sports for CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns. Time for us to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield.
Hey, Dave. How's it going? Just wondering, since, the Browns pretty much canned Baker and are holding him against his will until they acquired Watson, of course. So we all know that. So my question is if you have an opinion of where Baker's going to land, because they already decided for the Colts who they want, Ryan, as the quarterback. So that leaves the three other teams, Saints, Seattle, and Seahawks. So I was just wondering if you had an opinion on that. Thanks for your time.
All right. As always, appreciate the voicemails. Let's take a look at this tweet from David Newton. So one of those teams is the Panthers. Told that they're not interested. And again, David Newton is the Panthers beat reporter for ESPN. So they are not interested in Baker Mayfield according to that. The Saints have signed Jameis Winston to a multi-year contract. That leaves the Seahawks, who, Quincy, when you hear the reports out of Seattle, they're prepared to go with Drew Lock, and they're expected to take a quarterback up high, a rookie. I think they're picking 9th. A lot of the mock drafts have them going with either Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis. The market for Baker Mayfield is he may be here.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be here at least through OTAs, right? I would say it's probably going to be the Seahawks. I would have a real hard time thinking that they're going to go with Kenny Pickett in a city that rains as much. I mean, seeing how bad he was in the Senior Bowl when it rained and seeing that he has to wear. I mean, his hands aren't just small, and I know we went through the hand size thing with in the whole 2014 draft with Johnny Manziel and Teddy Bridgewater, right? But Teddy Bridgewater had 9-inch hands. He's got 8-inch hands. He's got tiny hands. So that's something that's going to be a factor when it comes to Kenny Pickett. So I don't buy that bluff that they're actually going to draft Kenny Pickett. So I think they're going to stick with Drew Lock, and they'll want to bring in somebody to compete. And that's probably going to be Baker Mayfield that they want to bring in. I think they're trying to play hardball because they know that there's not that much of a market with them. And the Browns are kind of playing hardball because they're waiting for another team to jump in order to really start any negotiations, because they're not going to start a trade negotiation when there's only one team that really wants the player. And just a quick note on the Panthers not wanting him. Boy, that's good to hear for both sides of that equation, man. I don't know if you know much about Matt Rule and how he runs things down there in Carolina, but the ideal of him and Baker Mayfield trying to run that thing together. Oh man, I would hate to be the beat reporters in that city. Like that's not what I want. You know, those are two fiery personalities that you know for a fact are not going to get along. Like the only person I could think would be worse for Baker Mayfield would be like Lane Kiffin, if you somehow found a way to pair him up with Lane Kiffin. But yeah, that makes sense to me. I remember hearing about the Panthers, and I'm like, there's no way you put Matt Rule and Baker Mayfield in the same room. That's not going to work. Matt Rule thinks that he could tell Cam Newton what to do, and he's a franchise legend over there in Carolina. And Baker Mayfield, he's not going to listen to Matt Rule. He don't want to listen to Kevin Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year last year. So these are not two that would have mutual interest in working with each other from everything that you can see outside of this. So, you know, I'm glad that one finally dropped, so we don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it's just they're waiting for another team to get into this whole conversation, and we'll see if another team does. But I think I have a pretty good grasp that the Seahawks are interested. I mean, you can see how Alonzo Highsmith has been handling himself on Twitter when it comes to what he feels about Baker Mayfield. And the fact is that there's enough of those dudes who drafted Baker Mayfield out there in the league that somebody's going to pick him up just to redeem themselves or attempt to redeem themselves for taking him number one overall, because ultimately that does fall on their necks, right? If you're Alonzo Highsmith, if you're John Dorsey, you're the dude who pulled the trigger on that. So you're probably going to be the one who's going to try to justify it by bringing him back. And we'll see what happens there.
All right, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about negotiations with some of the Browns' current players.
Just a quick comment, or maybe get your guys' opinion. With everything that's going on in Cleveland, with all the moves they're making, where do they stand in the negotiations with Denzel and Njoku? Are they planning on just, letting them play these years out and then maybe tag Ward and then sign Njoku, or are they working to try to get a deal for both of them? Or are they just taking their time because of everything else that's been taken care of right now? I just want to hear maybe an opinion. Maybe somebody knows. Thank you. Go Browns.
So again, Quincy, my guess is right now, both of them are under contract for this year. They're going to try to extend Ward. They're going to try to get a long-term deal done with Njoku. They franchise tagged him because they needed more time to figure out the salary cap. They've got some issues on the line that they're trying to address. So it's not that those guys aren't important. Denzel Ward, David Njoku, very important. Right now there's things that require more. There are more pressing things that need the attention and the negotiations.
Yeah, and when it comes to Andrew Berry, there is something to watch with who he chooses to re-sign and who he doesn't. It usually does not come out of nowhere. If you're paying attention to what he has done in the draft, you can tell which players he's probably going to move off of. Now, I personally think that Denzel Ward might not be somebody he's going to bring back at the number that he would have to bring back Denzel Ward at. And that's because if I look at the roster and I look at where the Browns have spent draft assets, they spent a lot of them at DB, right? They've spent a first-round pick on Greg Newsome, who looks like he could be a number one corner. And I think they're more than happy just sliding him up to one in the case that they can't have Denzel Ward. So I think Denzel Ward, look, that's a player that if you were going to keep, I don't think it gets to this point in his contract without a deal or without serious talks of a deal. I know there's been some rumblings, but it doesn't seem like there's been anything serious with him. So I would keep my eyes out that, this might be Denzel Ward's last year with the Browns. When it comes to David Njoku, you look at the roster, they really only have Harrison Bryant. There's not going to be a premium tight end selection this year in the draft. So David Njoku's probably going to get a deal worked out during the season. But Denzel Ward's the one I look at and go, they might see him as somebody that they can let go and replace and not really lose much. It's kind of a similar situation where J.C. Treader was in, where they just let J.C. Treader walk because they were like, hey, man, we feel like Nick Harris can step in. Next year, it's probably going to be the same situation with Jack Conklin because they feel like James Hudson can step in. That's just how Andrew Berry seems to operate. He does not let a good player walk unless he feels like he has a good player to replace them. And you could tell how that's going to go by looking at the roster because if he's not going to re-sign somebody a year before he does that, that player's probably on the roster already.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. We'll hear again from Pat McAfee what he has seen from Deshaun Watson on the sidelines. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns and the acquisition of Deshaun Watson, just how it's being viewed both nationally and by guys who have seen Deshaun Watson play. Take a listen again. Pat McAfee, and this is from the Pat McAfee Show. He's a guy that saw him on the sidelines when he was the punter for the Indianapolis Colts. Here's Pat McAfee on Deshaun Watson.
He's a fucking incredible football player.
Yes.
And that team is stacked offensive line-wise, running back-wise. They got Amari Cooper. Mm-hmm. He'll be able to make, if he's still playing the same way he was playing a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, he'll be able to make other wide receivers that aren't A wide receivers at least higher grade. If they're a C wide receiver, he can make them a B wide receiver because with how he can scramble in prolonged plays and extend plays, that gives guys more time to get open. He can hit them. I mean, he is a baller. I got a chance to see him, obviously, Colts, Texans. I watch him play 2 times a year now, every single time, even whenever they only win 4 games a season. He's fucking electrifying. He is exactly what Cleveland Browns fans will love. Obviously, the civil cases are going to have to get figured out and justice should be served, but criminally, as soon as that thing was no longer indicted, we knew the NFL was going to move in. It ended up being Cleveland. None of us could have expected this.
And again, let's take a look. So that's a guy that's seen him play in person. Take a look at the Super Bowl odds. This is from BetMGM. The Browns started this at plus 4,000 before they acquired Deshaun Watson. Now they are plus 1,600. You got the Bills, Bucks, Chiefs, Packers, Rams, and 49ers are the only ones that are viewed as more likely to be the Super Bowl winner. This is to win the Super Bowl. Browns there with the Cowboys, Broncos, and Chargers, and they are the favorites to win the AFC North. So, Quincy, when you look at it, adding the guy that is a quarterback makes everybody better, makes the team a legitimate threat in the AFC. We're saying the same thing last year, so I get that. This time, you got stability, or in theory, you got stability and quality play from the quarterback position.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I've always been on the team of, look, if you got a guy that you could spend $50 million on, you would more than happily do that at the quarterback position, because a good quarterback fixes so many of your flaws offensively and sometimes even defensively because they could just score the football, right? Because when you have a good quarterback, your wide receivers are just going to magically be better, right? Your wide receivers are not going to be as bad anymore. When you have a quarterback, your offensive line going to look a little bit better than it actually is, right? Like, these are the things that a good quarterback can just improve upon just because he's there. And that's what you have in Watson, right? The Browns had some flaws on offense, and those were flaws with Baker Mayfield as a quarterback. Because Baker Mayfield, while he was okay, he wasn't a good enough quarterback to where he could cover up flaws that an offense has. Deshaun Watson is that good to where, hey, look, you might not have a lot of wide receivers, even though we have enough now. But even if you don't have a lot of wide receivers, Deshaun Watson's good enough to make it work. If your offensive line's a little shaky, he's good enough to move around and make it work. Like, he can make this work. He can manipulate defenses, and then that run game is going to be great as well on top of it. So again, it's going to be very hard for any team to win a Super Bowl in the AFC for the next 5 to 10 years because just given the talent that's in this conference. But you now have a real shot to do it, right? Like with Baker, you were hoping that you can get lucky, some injuries could happen, and maybe the gauntlet could be softened up, kind of like how it was for the Bengals this year, where they didn't really have to play a quarterback to the AFC Championship round. With now the Browns, you don't really have to hope to get lucky. If you're the 7th seed, you feel like you can get to the Super Bowl. If you're the 1 seed, you feel like you can get to the Super Bowl because you feel like you have the guy who can get you there. Now, he still has to prove it. He has not done it yet. Like, he still has to prove it. But there's no reason to believe that he's not capable given a roster that's good enough.
The other thing is he has not played with an offensive line that is as good as the one he's going to play with the Browns. So that should Deshaun Watson's got to be thrilled with the Browns' offensive line because the Texans' offensive line was challenged at times.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the decision making for the Browns, I mean, there's the one story where they just showed him tape. All you got to do is say, hey, Baker Mayfield had like 2.8 seconds on average to throw the football, right? Like, that's just what was going on with Baker Mayfield. That's how much time he has had throughout his career, that his pocket time is like 2.8 seconds. And Deshaun Watson, he ain't never seen 2.8 seconds before in his life in the NFL. So that's one of the big factors in there, right? Yeah. They have that level of pass protection. And also, his life can be made easier, right? He does not have to throw for 300 yards for this team to win football games. He might be able to get away with a couple of 100-yard games just because he has Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, who could just take over the game because teams are terrified to stack the box. Well, terrified to stack the box when Deshaun Watson is out there at the quarterback position. It's just one of those things where it's like this goes from an offense that was super easy to defend last year, where teams were just stacking the box, sometimes even putting 9 in there, and just daring Baker Mayfield to beat them. And that's how the teams played them, and it was very successful. To now, what do you do, right? Like, all of a sudden, this became a whole lot more difficult to defend. And it ain't because they did a lot of moves. It's because they made one move in particular that has made this whole thing a lot more difficult for defenses to defend. And that's really how this is going to go down, right? Like, that's the biggest difference, is that defenses are now going to be a little bit more hand-tied. And then when you have that, and if hopefully if your defense can play at a high level and get decent field position for your quarterback, then all of a sudden, you're looking at a team that has a strong chance to be a championship contender.
Quincy Carrier, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Good stuff, Quincy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Quincy Carrier, YouTube personality, breaking it down about Deshaun Watson and the Browns. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Cavs. Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter, straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. We turn our attention to the Cleveland Cavaliers getting ready for a really important game Thursday against the Toronto Raptors. Currently, the Cavs are in 6th spot, the final spot that avoids the play-in. The Raptors are in the 7th spot, first spot of that play-in. Cavs a game ahead of them. They hold the tiebreaker as well. We'll get to more on that in just a minute. Cavs coming off tough loss last night at home against the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James, a triple-double. Cavs were in it and then kind of let it get away the final 5 minutes of the game as the Lakers put one away on the road against the Cavs. J.B. Bickerstaff talked about lessons learned from that loss.
We did not compete at the level that we needed to compete at tonight to win this game. And these are all the learning experiences that we talk about, right? We got caught up in the show. And instead of doing the things that we needed to do and focus on the bigger picture and the task that we had at hand, we allowed this moment to overtake us. And, we had our opportunities. We came out and played well early. And when we had the opportunity to keep going, we got caught up in it. And when you have the amount of talent that that team has and what they're capable of, you can't give them those opportunities. You can't allow them, that momentum. And, we just didn't compete at the level that we needed to give ourselves a chance tonight.
And again, it's important to note, Cavs, a young team going through it for the first time. And you have LeBron James, you have Russell Westbrook. I know Russell Westbrook hasn't been playing well, but he's still a guy that's been there a long time. He had 20-some points. LeBron James, 37 points, had a triple-double, and they closed out the game on the Cavs. So again, what J.B. Bickerstaff getting at there is learning experience for a young team. They're going to need to kind of get that done and learn from that. They're going to have more of them. Huge opportunity coming up because, as I mentioned, next game coming up Thursday is an important one. Cavs will play the Toronto Raptors. Currently, the Cavs are in 6th spot. They're a game ahead of Toronto, who's in the 7th spot. Cavs have also already taken the season series from them. So it's a 3-game swing with it. If the Cavs can knock off the Raptors on Thursday, they're 3 ahead, with a handful of games left to make sure that they hold on to that 6th spot and don't have to be part of the play-in tournament. Kind of that's the goal right now. 1 through 6 are in the tournament, 7 through 10 play in to get the 7th and 8th spots, and then you line up and go for the playoffs. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we are efforting to get a hold of Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We will talk more about the Cavs after this time out on Sports for CLE. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. Having a little bit of trouble connecting with Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. If we can do that, we will bring him in. But let's take a look some of the things we had planned to talk about with Chris. Youngest players to average 25 points per game and 12 assists per game over a 10-game span in the regular season. That's according to Pro Basketball Reference. And you see Darius Garland, the youngest at 22 years of age, 54 days. This is a pretty good list to be on. I mean, anytime you're a point guard and you're mentioned in the same breath with Oscar Robertson, Isaiah Thomas, and Chris Paul, those are the elite in the game as far as point guards go. And Darius Garland, one of the guys that has done 25 points, 12 assists during a 10-game span. At 22 years of age. So Darius Garland playing really well. You can definitely see it. Cavs a different offense when he's running the show out there. Another guy that has really stepped up when needed has been Evan Mobley. In the absence of Jared Allen, who is out with that fractured finger, they're hoping to get him back final week of the regular season. So a couple weeks away from coming back. But take a look at what Evan Mobley has done. The rookie putting a stamp on the Rookie of the Year. Since March 6th, that's 8 games, all in the absence of Jared Allen. He is averaging 20 points a game, 10.6 rebounds a game, 2.8 assists per game, 1.38 steals per game, almost 2 blocks a game. He's playing almost 37 minutes a game. He's shooting 55% from the field, 5 double-doubles. Any time that the Cavs need Evan Mobley to kind of tweak and adjust his game, he seems to be able to do it. And that's kind of the definition of what should be Rookie of the Year. Let's welcome in Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, appreciate it. Chris, we were talking a little bit about Evan Mobley. I'm running out of adjectives to talk about how good he's been, because anything the Cavs need him to do, he seems to be able to do and adjust his game.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And it's interesting, too, Dave, because J.B. Bickerstaff keeps talking about it with Evan. The thing that stands out to him is that he's unfazed no matter what he does, no matter the situation that he's put in, no matter the position that he's playing. Nothing is too much for him. And it's rare to have a 20-year-old kid that has that kind of attitude, that kind of mentality, doesn't go through the ups and downs of a regular season, because there are a bunch of ups and downs that come with a regular season. There are a bunch of emotions that come with a regular season. And no matter what it is, Evan has been able to handle it. Now, part of this obviously is that he's a natural 5. He's been playing it his entire life, but in the NBA, it's different. There are matchups that he has seen recently that, the Cavs probably wouldn't have been super comfortable with him going up against at the beginning of the season. But he has earned their trust. He has earned the benefit of the doubt. And JB Bickerstaff now feels like no situation is too much. And no matter what they put on his plate or they're forced to put on his plate, he's going to respond.
Yeah, and again, it's important to note how young he is. He had one season at USC. One season. So you can see why the Cavs are smiling about that. You also wrote an article just about a special quality that the Cavaliers have that's helped. I mean, it's been, for a young team, how can you not smile that they've played so well? A lot of young teams would crumble with what they've gone through. What has enabled them to get through that?
They like each other. They like playing with each other. They believe in each other. They have bought in completely to the style that JB Bickerstaff wants to play. They understand that it's Darius Garland's team. It's Darius Garland's offense. They understand that Evan Mobley is going to be one of the anchors of the defense. Before the season, Dave, JB Bickerstaff put a note card in every single player's locker, and it spelled out what their role was. And it was different for each guy, right? For Darius Garland, it was leadership, get others involved, and 50-50 balls. For Jetty Osman, it was hustle, knock down open shots. Lamar Stevens, he has his own role. And that is a constant reminder of what is required for this team to be successful from the individual player. It's not about you, it's about the team. It's about buying into something greater than yourself. And the Cavs have bought into something greater than themselves. And obviously, there have been individual accomplishments along the way, but it's all under the umbrella of team. And they enjoy playing with each other. The style that they play is infectious, and it fits the personnel that they have on this team. And when you have that level of chemistry, that allows you to stay connected even in the dark times.
So last night, the final 5 minutes were probably concerning for JB Bickerstaff because the Cavs were there and just kind of let it get away. What do you make of that? And take me through kind of your thought process, what you've seen, what needs to kind of get tweaked a little.
To be perfectly honest with you, Dave, I think the 48 minutes were, let's say the 40 minutes of game action were a concern for JB Bickerstaff, especially on the defensive end. And that's where it has to start with this team. I think everybody understands that, yes, Darius Garland is playing at an extremely high level, and he is operating the offense like an all-star point guard. But if this team is going to continue to be successful, if this team is going to hold off the Raptors and the Brooklyn Nets, it's got to be on the defensive end because that's how they got to this point. That's their identity. And they know it, and they recognize it, and they believe in it. But the truth is, since the All-Star break, Dave, their defense has not been good enough. They're number 23 in defensive rating in the second half of the season. Last night against Los Angeles was the worst defensive performance that they've had all season long. Some of their worst defensive performances in the top 5 have all come in the second half of this season. There was one against Atlanta. There was another one, like I said, against the Los Angeles Lakers last night. So they've got to get it together on the defensive end. And part of it, obviously, is Jared Allen is missing. He is critical to what they do on the defensive end of the floor. But the attention to detail hasn't been there. The physicality hasn't been there. The closeouts that we saw at the beginning of the season, the hustle that we saw at the beginning of the season, all of that has tapered off here in the second half of the season. And if the Cavs are going to continue to hold off the other teams that are charging behind them, they've got to get better defensively. They cannot give up 35-point quarters to the Los Angeles Lakers and the Charlotte Hornets and the Washington Wizards and some of these other teams.
Yeah, and that was their calling card early. That's what got them to where they were. All right, before I let you go, Thursday's game, huge game. They're a game up on the Raptors. They play the Raptors. They have the tiebreaker. So if they are able to, in fact, beat the Raptors, it's almost like they open up, in essence, a 3-game lead. Do you expect it to kind of be a playoff atmosphere? And what's the message, do you think? What do you think JB Bickerstaff tells the Cavs as they get ready to go out and play the Raptors?
I think JP's message has been pretty consistent here in the second half of the season. Understand the moment. Understand what you're playing for. The stakes are really, really high. The moment is going to be pressure-packed. There's a reason why we are where we are currently in playoff positioning. But we have to continue to play our style. We can't focus on the Raptors. We can't look at the schedule. We have to focus on us. We have to be the best version of ourselves, because if we're the best version of ourselves, that should be good enough to beat a team like Toronto, even in the state that we are in right now. Don't get caught up in all of the hoopla that is going to surround the game. Don't get caught up in the playoff environment. And there's a human element to this, Dave, obviously, because the Cavs haven't been in these kinds of environments. They haven't played these kinds of meaningful games. But JB's message basically has been try and block that out as best you can and focus on the task at hand. And if we play our game, we win. Yeah, and you know what? The season has borne that out, and you know what? It's going to be fun. They've earned the right to play in meaningful games, and one of the most meaningful of the year comes up Thursday, followed by probably the next game. Chris Fedor, man, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Chris. You got it, Dave. Anytime, man. All right, Chris Fedor. Make sure you read him. Cavs beat reporter, pages The Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, Garrett Bush from 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, as well as Brad Ward from Dog Pound Daily. We will see you then at 4 o'clock, Sports for CLE tomorrow afternoon. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.